The Xiaomi 9 has just been released in China, and throughout the entire launch event, the Xiaomi CEO, Lei Jun, consistently compared their phone, the Xiaomi 9, to the Huawei Mate 20. So if the Xiaomi CEO himself is comparing these two devices, let's just see both of these in the hand and see how they actually compare. I'm going to go through all the specs and give you my real life opinion, because as we know, companies tend to use data in their own sort of way. It's not necessarily how things actually pan out in real life. So the Xiaomi 9 is a newer phone than the Huawei Mate 20. The Mate 20 coming out last year, and obviously the Xiaomi 9 just been released. However, there's actually only 4 months between these two phones. 4 months is not a huge deal of time. Of course, the Xiaomi 9 is using that brand new chipset from Qualcomm, the Snapdragon 855. Xiaomi went to great lengths to say how good their new chipset is, how good the benchmarks are, how well it performs. However, I don't really see too much difference between the Kirin 980 and the Snapdragon 855. The Kirin 980, if anything, was a little bit ahead of its time. The Snapdragon 855 and the Kirin 980 both use a 7nm process. They're manufactured using the same technology, so actually the gap between them shouldn't be that wide. Have a look on the launch event. Now you can see the Xiaomi CEO putting up this graph telling everyone just how amazing the Snapdragon 855 within the Xiaomi 9 does in benchmarks. So you would assume that they're way better than the Kirin 980 in the Huawei Mate 20. Just look at the actual numbers. Now my maths isn't amazing, but I'm pretty sure that 62976 is actually more than 62711. So I'm a little bit amiss as to why Xiaomi are trying to almost mislead us about the performance of the 855 in the Xiaomi 9. However, if you look at this other benchmark, it does beat the Mate 20. Actually, I think benchmarks in real life are not something you should concentrate on. In any case, the comparison to be made here, even though the 855 is a brand new chipset, I don't think there's that much performance difference between that and the Kirin 980. In terms of the other design, actually the screen on the Mate 20 is slightly bigger, 6.5 inches versus 6.4 inches on the Xiaomi 9. I would say the way that they actually feel, the Mate 20 is a bit wider and sort of feels a little bit bigger than the Xiaomi 9. The Xiaomi 9 is quite thin and very long. You've got that long aspect ratio there. If anything, I prefer Huawei's take on the water drop notch. I think it's a bit more elegant, looks a bit nicer, but I think overall, actually the bezels on the Xiaomi 9 are definitely smaller than that on the Huawei. In percentage terms, but also just when you look at it in real life, you can see the Xiaomi 9's design is just a bit more modern than that of the Huawei Mate 20. Another big difference about the screen is that the Xiaomi 9 uses an AMOLED display, the Mate 20 uses an LCD display. Actually, I really like the LCD display on the Mate 20. The colors are really accurate and it is very bright. However, I just prefer AMOLED, and the AMOLED panel on the Xiaomi 9 is really good. I just love those really dark blacks that you just can't get on an LCD panel. I have to give it to the Xiaomi 9 here, but if you're just using one of these devices day to day, I don't think you would notice a big difference between them. Also, a big advantage of the Mate 20 is that you can put external storage in it. Xiaomi are renowned for not giving you that option. If that's important to you, the Mate 20 certainly wins there. There's lots of other features that even the CEO himself compared with the Mate 20, for example, fast charging, where Xiaomi showed that the Xiaomi 9 is a little bit quicker than the Mate 20. Again, it might be, but I think in real life, maybe 10 or 15 minutes charging time here or there isn't really a big deal. Right, so let's move on to the cameras between them, because actually there is a lot of similarities between these two cameras. Xiaomi have for the first time put a triple camera on one of their flagship phones. Using it in the shop, I couldn't really give it a huge run out and test it in different scenarios. We'll have to wait till the actual device lands and I can get hold of one. But initial impressions are very good, and I love the night mode on the Xiaomi 9. it just gives you these awesome looking photos, even under the bright lights of the shop. When I tried the night mode, it just gave me a different looking shot. It's obviously all to do with the software. It's a really good feature that I definitely want to test out more when I get the real device. I tested out the Redmi Note 7, and even for a budget phone, I was really impressed with what Xiaomi did with the camera there. So I expect the Xiaomi 9 just to be even better than that. Xiaomi again said, according to DxOMark, the Xiaomi 9 is right up there, but in my personal experience using Huawei phones, taking photos with Huawei phones is just absolutely incredible. They give you super clear pictures, and actually the interface using the cameras, the camera app, is definitely better on the Huawei than it is on the Xiaomi 9. On the Xiaomi 9, if you want to use the brand new super wide angle camera, you have to press a completely separate button on the bottom left of the camera app screen. You can zoom in using the telephoto ×2 and then back out again using one button, and then there's a completely separate button for the super wide angle. I just don't know why Xiaomi did this. I haven't had a chance to look through the settings to see if you can change that. I assume that you can't, which is a little bit strange. Now on the Huawei Mate 20, there's just one slider bar that goes up and down. You can zoom all the way in, and then you can come all the way out using that super wide angle camera. I'm gonna have to wait until I can get a real Xiaomi 9 to really test out the camera, but just using the two, I would say the Huawei camera app is way more intuitive than that on the Xiaomi 9. Although to be honest, day to day, you'll get used to either, so there's not a massive difference between them. In terms of stats of the cameras, actually they're pretty even. They both have that triple camera setup with a telephoto, a main camera and an ultra wide camera. The Xiaomi 9 does beat the Huawei in terms of megapixels, although we know by now that megapixels isn't really a massive factor with these phones. The actual results that they give you are more important, and Huawei again and again have been shown to give some of the best pictures of any phone. Even though Xiaomi uses a brand new processor, it doesn't give you any features over and above that of the Mate 20. You get slow-mo, you get 4K recording. In fact, the stats between them are exactly the same, except for when you record super slow-mo. So on the Mate 20, super slow-mo gets recorded at 720p, and on the Xiaomi 9 you can record that super slow-mo at 1080p, something that isn't going to sway you one way or another when you're looking at these phones. In terms of image stabilization of video, actually the telephoto lens on the Mate 20 does have optical image stabilization. The other two lenses do not. On the new Xiaomi 9, none of the lenses have OIS. However, I think electronic image stabilization now is getting better and better. The Redmi Note 7 that I tested had EIS only from that Snapdragon 660, and it's really incredibly good. It's really surprising how Xiaomi can get such smooth images whilst not using optical image stabilization. That Snapdragon 855 is going to be even better than the 660 in the Redmi Note 7. However, between the Mate 20 and the Xiaomi, the differences are probably very small. Other design features that are different between them: the Mate 20 does have a headphone jack, the Xiaomi 9 does not. It may or may not be important to you. The batteries are also different. The Huawei has a slightly bigger battery at 4,000 mAh, whilst the Xiaomi 9 uses 3,300 mAh. Again, stats here don't really matter, it's how they charge. Xiaomi did say that they charge faster and that the battery lasts longer. In real world usage, I'm not sure it's going to affect you too much. Alright, so one of the biggest differences between these phones, considering that the statistics show them to be incredibly close. They definitely go head to head, and putting the stats side by side, you can see why the Xiaomi CEO consistently compared the Xiaomi 9 to the Mate 20. One place that they do differ by quite a lot is the price. So the Xiaomi 9 in China has a starting price of 3,000 RMB. I'll put some exchange rates on the screen so you can just get a feel for the price difference between them, although the Xiaomi 9 price does change once it gets outside of China. Xiaomi devices are usually more expensive outside of China than inside. So in China, their starting price is 2,999 RMB. Once it gets outside of China, that may increase a bit in your own country. Again, Huawei prices are going to be different in every country, but at the moment you can get a new Mate 20 for about 4,500 RMB. So you can see the difference between them is about 1,500 RMB. So there is a difference between them. Considering that the difference between them, about £150 or so, is the price of a Redmi Note 7, then it may sway you to get the Xiaomi. These two in real life are really similar, and using either one you'd be very happy, but that price may be the single determining factor to which one you want to buy.